To all of you JRPG fans, I am deeply sorry. As I write this, we are on the horizon of something truly spectacular. Metaphor ReFantazio. Like many of you, I too have been eager to finally get my hands on this game, and no joke, as I'm recording this, it is installing on my PS5 right now, and I am just super giddy about it. Though in my excitement, I have sort of been wanting to get this out and off of my chest, especially for how long it's kind of been wallowing in my head. I used to really hate JRPGs. Well, maybe hate is too strong of a word. More so, it was a genre that I just had no respect for. Not to make excuses or anything, but I consider myself to be among the last of the arcade kids. I grew up on games that are gameplay first more than anything else. I wanted to play for points. I wanted to play for exploration. I wanted to play to find secrets. I wanted to play for the challenge in executing actions instantly. I wanted to play to test myself. There was just more satisfaction to be had in platformers, racing games, fighting games, games that let me mess around with their worlds, physics, and puzzles. I guess you could say what I valued most was interactivity. So when I saw games like Final Fantasy VII, Kingdom Hearts, Rogue Galaxy, or Xenosaga, I would be immediately turned off by them. In all honesty, I still don't understand why people play video games for story and only story, but whatever. Your money, your choice. What baffled me more was just how text-heavy every JRPG seemed. Out loud, this sounds ridiculous, but, what kid is going to want to play video games to read? It didn't help that JRPGs seemed so menu-focused as well. I'm here to play a video game, man, not play it like some glorified options menu. Let me go and do things. And then I would hear about how long these games are and how you'd have to grind XP to get characters at a decent level, but you also should go find these ultra-powerful weapons that you would only ever know about from gaming magazines and cheat books. It all just sounded like an arbitrarily lengthy process, and it really put me off. And the stories. Oh my god. The stories I have heard about JRPGs. Why does every single JRPG have to star some overly serious soldier boy with spiky hair? Why do the villains have to be so grandiose with their dialogue? Why does every sword slash have to be accompanied by mystical symbols, a hippo stampede, and a mathematical equation to end the universe? And why? Why all this talk about, oh, the light is protecting our hearts to keep the dark out because the dark prevents the light from coming in, so we can keep the dark out because light is good for our hearts and it keeps the dark out so that it doesn't keep the light out. Like, every single JRPG just came across as overly emotional while pulling off the most absurd moves ever imagined, both in combat and in narrative structure. Just what sort of messed up chaos was this genre? If you think we're having problems with conflicting tones in today's games, well, welcome to my purview as an outsider to JRPGs. What's even funnier in retrospect is that while I turned my nose up at Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, and a bunch of other JRPGs, there actually was a JRPG I would come back to without even realizing what it was. I'll never understand how I got my hands on Digimon World 2, but something about that one kept me coming back, only to stop playing after choosing a faction to play as, only for me to come back and repeat the same short-lived process months later. Clearly there was something clicking for me here, right? Something was managing to jiggle the lock to the door that was keeping me from opening up to regular JRPGs, even with its seemingly empty dungeons and drawn-out combat encounters. Maybe it was the pacing, which was slower than most games I played. Maybe it was the flashy effects and it was just my autism falling in love with it. Or maybe I just thought that one Lego Digimon was cool and I just wanted to see him again. Either way, there was something here, and I just didn't know what it was. I still don't know what it is. This game sucks, honestly. I proceeded to tease my peers who enjoyed JRPGs well into college, as I continued down my own gaming path of Smash Brothers, Overwatch, Smite, and whatever cheap retro games I could get my grubby hands at the local game store. Not GameStop, I'm talking about like actual retro game stores. A few JRPGs came and went that seemed interesting to me initially, but the second I would hear it's a JRPG, I immediately lost interest in whatever the game was. By this point, early 2010s JRPGs seemed obsessed with tossing random numbers at players. Nothing about a simple kidney punch seemed interesting, even with a damage output of 567,213. It all just seemed way more mindless than it ever did before. Granted, gaming was in a deep slump in the first half of the 2010s with games that focused more on visuals instead of interesting gameplay. Why else do you think I spent so much time playing Naughty Bear? But as 2019 was approaching, one game crossed my radar that actually piqued my interest enough to where I sat down and said, you know what? I'm gonna play this. Persona 5. This was a game that looked like nothing I had ever seen before. For once, this was a JRPG that was not tangled up in some convoluted lore. It was not overly emotional from the outside looking in. It was not littered with a cast of spiky-haired protagonists and schoolgirls. It didn't have an overly grandiose villain running his mouth about his amazing plan. Instead, there was a mystery at play as to who was causing mental shutdowns in the real world. And above all, in a graphical sense, it did not look like anything else that had ever been on the market. Not some weird mishmash of fantasy and sci-fi that just, unfortunately, makes no sense in my brain. But that's a topic for another time. No fantastical absurdity to be seen in any corner, and it came with a kick-ass soundtrack to boot. After one night of playing for about 3 or 4 hours, it was all over for me. I spent all of January and February 2019 playing Persona 5, dedicating nights and entire weekends to lengthy play sessions. I was just obsessed with the music, the baton pass mechanic, the insane story of how mementos affected the outside world, the design of the UI and how it reflects the narrative themes. Everything about this game just spoke to me on such a monumental level. Even though I was 2 years too late, I still saw what others saw in Persona 5 back in 2017. Soon, I found myself playing other JRPGs, both action and turn-based. For the rest of 2019, I checked out I Am Setsuna, Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise, and Code Vein. I beat Fist of the North Star, got super far into I Am Setsuna, and I plan on revisiting it very, very soon so I can try to beat the whole game. And as for Code Vein, Code Vein isn't for me. I don't know what it is about that game. I'm into it for the first hour, and then I'm lost. I even gave the original Final Fantasy VII a shot on PS4, and that one just wasn't hitting me the same way as other folks saw it. I'm sorry, I have to wait on cooldowns to participate in a fight? What? That's just... no. Frickin', it's a mobile game, man. However, I didn't stop at Code Vein in Final Fantasy VII. My time with JRPGs in 2019 showed me why people love JRPGs and what makes each and every one of them so special. Yes, they are long. Yes, they tend to be more anime than most can stomach. Yes, the mechanics can seem too complex at times. But if there is anything I learned in this time, is that the one thing JRPGs really excel in, more often than not, it's in crafting the game into an adventure that feels like your own. There is just something truly magical about how these games can make a slow burn feel great as they ease you into the mechanics and the story. In a way, it's helped me learn to be a bit more patient with myself when grasping new concepts. And that's not just in games, that's in life in general. I've actually tried to be more forgiving for myself and really take time to try to understand things a bit better. Rarely do JRPGs ever just throw shit at you and expect you to understand it all in the same breath. They typically feed you bits and pieces and let you figure out the synergy between everything as you go. And the more time you spend with the game, the quicker you find this rhythm between story, side quests, exploring, mini-games, collectibles, combat, the whole 9 yards. Persona 5, Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise, and I Am Setsuna were the wall busters I needed to show that not every JRPG was the same shtick over and over again, and that there are games that can be enjoyable and they do work at a much slower pace than I am used to. After 2019, I did bounce around some other JRPGs just to dip my toes into other franchises. Yakuza Like a Dragon was far more hilarious than I anticipated after having played Yakuza 0. Dragon Quest XI was cool, but I felt like I wasn't ready for it at the time. And of course, I had to grab Persona 5 Royal when that came out. I just have too much respect for this game to not buy it at launch. And I still respect it a great deal to this day, probably more than most people do. I was about to trek into Ni no Kuni 2 before some new releases got in the way with work and made me drop the game after about an hour or so. So there was a lot of ping-ponging with me and JRPGs before I hit the second phase in realizing that I actually love this genre. Now, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I went through a very low point in my life in November 2023. If you don't want to be depressed, now might be a good time to pause the video and come back another time, but just to let you know, no, this is not like this video game saved my life, okay? I'm not that kind of person, all right? But in November 2023, there was a night where I remember coming home, and the first thing I did was I went into the kitchen and grabbed some hard liquor from the counter. I just wasn't happy with where I was in life, and it was at a point where I kind of felt nothing. So my plan for that night was to just drink and play video games until I was ready to pass out. Whether it was the alcohol or the depression, I saw that I had installed the Kingdom Hearts collection onto my PS5 and thought, why the f*** not? I got nothing else in me to really give a shit about this, myself, or anything else. I might as well boot up this dumb game and just ride this until bed. Before this night, Kingdom Hearts was my go-to punching bag. As I hinted at earlier in this video, the whole light and dark crap was the most nonsensical, the most absurdist thing I had ever heard from a work of fiction. Also, it didn't help that I liked Disney way, way more than I ever did Final Fantasy, so if I can't play as the Disney characters, why in the ever-loving hell would I play a game like Kingdom Hearts where I cannot play Donald, Goofy, or Jack Skellington? I even tried the game on PS2 when I was a kid, and I absolutely loathed it. I hated this game. The controls were garbage, and the real-time combat I found was asking way too much from me. Huge waste of $20, and it almost ruined a whole weekend of doing chores just to get a trip to Play and Trade. But that night, Kingdom Hearts surprisingly made me do a complete 180 on my perception of the IP, and I realized that this genre of video games is entirely in my wheelhouse. I remember playing the game almost completely mindlessly. I'm reading the text, I'm barely registering what I'm being told to go do. I just know Kyrie's bossing me around and is like, oh, go do this, go grab me that, I want to build a boat. Like, I'm only giving this game enough attention to process what is going on just to keep myself from getting too lost in my own head. And then I slowly started giving Kingdom Hearts a fairer shake this time around. You know, the animation and the character models actually look really good. Huh. I don't remember the controls feeling this nice. Alright, well there is some thought behind the presentation here. Aside from thinking this, everything in between those comments to myself was just empty. Just trying not to feel a damn thing. If anything, I was hoping I'd get tipsy enough to just call it quits on the game myself and just go to bed. But then I finally felt something for the first time in weeks, and it was... This is going to sound really weird and really stupid, but it was this scene that really changed everything.
But you can't come along looking like that. Understand?
Oh?
No frowning, no sad face, okay?
Yeah, you gotta look funny, like us. Yup. Whoa.
Whisper runs on happy faces.
Happy?
I know, Sora making a stupid-ass smile like that is such a dumb way, a dumb reason to alter my perception of an entire franchise and an entire genre of games in an even stupider way. To suddenly pull me out of weeks of numbness. For the first time ever, I was fully on board with Kingdom Hearts. For the first time ever, I felt like I finally understood something and was seeing what everybody else in my generation had seen in this franchise 20 years ago. There was connection. The real-time combat, the music, the writing, it all clicked for me. Finally. And honestly, I was shocked that it took until the final few hours of the game for Kingdom Hearts to live up to its notoriety I had perceived it as back then. The second Kyrie's grandma starts yapping about light and darkness, that's when the nonsense begins. And even then, after suffering through that scene, I still loved my entire experience with Kingdom Hearts. No, I have not played it on Proud and I never will. I have seen what that mode does to people. I am not people. It has been roughly a year now since I had that epiphany, since I had that journey with Kingdom Hearts, and so far I have dived into other JRPGs. It's mostly been more ping-ponging until I find something that sticks, but I did enjoy my short time with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I plan on going back to that as soon as I finish Final Fantasy VII Remake and Crisis Core. Persona 3 Reload stole a significant chunk of February for me before I left to go power through all of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth for 2 straight months. Infinite Wealth, by the way, has been one of my favorite games of the year so far. Then, Persona 3 Reload returned, it re-entered my life, and stole my entire summer, as I tried to finish it before my Game Pass expired. I have since bought it on PS5, and I just plan to start the campaign from scratch. Again, I've had to write about Rogue Galaxy a couple of times on Mojo Plays, and there is something there that has me interested as well, especially after I read up on Level 5's pre-Ni no Kuni days. And playing through the first chapter, Rogue Galaxy seems kind of cool. I want to dig in deeper. I've been playing the original Dragon Quest on my Switch here and there, but I'm trying not to go too hard at it since the remake of Dragon Quest III is right around the corner. At some point, I would love to tackle the Legend of Heroes series, as soon as Nihon Falcom can stop belting out a new damn game every 3 months. In the meantime, I guess I'll just restart Trails in the Sky, because I do have save data from playing it for like an hour or so on Steam, and I'm just going to start from there until the remake for that game is out. And yes, as I said earlier in the video, I am playing Metaphor ReFantazio. There was just no way I was going to miss the chance to jump on this game when we are all going to be experiencing this at the same time. Hell, you're probably already playing it as you're watching the video, or you probably already started it before you came across this video. But all that said, I really wanted to make this video because I am truly sorry. I am sorry to all of you. I'm sorry to all JRPG devs, JRPG publishers, JRPG fans, fans of Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Persona, every single community within this genre. After 5 years of jumping between games and ping-ponging in between the pilgrimages of the bigger titles, I have found so much more to love about these games, way more than I ever did before. And I never thought I would be excited about Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts. I hope to start Kingdom Hearts 2 sometime before the new year starts. And once I finish Persona 3 Reload, I'm going to be jumping into Persona 4. And like I said earlier, I want to go back and I want to actually beat I Am Setsuna, because I heard that story is just so beautiful. I'm really happy to say that I've seen the I know it sounds so ridiculous to say, but I really have seen the light. And with all the years that I spent sort of making fun of this genre and kind of dismissing it, I want to say, if you've been somebody who's been a fan of these games from the very beginning, like from when you were a kid, I am sorry. And I am so glad to be joining you all for finally, it's just, it kind of feels so great. And I'm glad to have finally made this video. It's been on my mind for quite a few months now. So I know it's not like the serious topics that I usually cover on this channel, but I wanted to make this one just because it's like, it's so funny how I spent so much time just poking fun at these games, and now they're all I can think about, really. Like, I've had the Five Nights at Freddy's Kart Racer spinoff installed on my PC, and all I've been able to think about for the last couple weeks is Metaphor ReFantazio. I haven't even booted up 5 Laps at Freddy's. I've been thinking about Metaphor too much. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I would love to hear your guys' recommendations for other JRPGs down in the comments. And I'll be sure to pay attention and see what you're all saying. I'd really love to get your guys' input. So, anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again soon.